Hi guys, welcome to this faction overview. We are not going to talk about Clan of Tsar, but imagine a different faction where you're not moving your space docks around with production. Instead, you use your war sons. Say hello to the Roh Dhna Mechatronics. But before diving into the war son unit here, let's start with their starting units and their homeworld. So they begin with 2 carriers, which is fine. Then you have 3 infantry, which is on the low side, 3 fighters, which is quite good, 1 destroyer and a space dock. So in all, a fairly good starting fleet. Then if we look at the home system here, we just have a single planet called Prim, and I think it's very versatile because it got 3 resources and 3 influence on it. So you can always decide whether you want to use the resources to produce units or the influence to buy 1 additional command token. Then we have their starting technologies, and they start with Sarween tools that gives us a production discount of 1 whenever one of our units uses production. And since our war sons got production, then of course there's a good synergy with starting with this technology. And the other technology that they start with is psychoarchaeology. And with this technology, we can use the technology specialties here without exhausting the planets. And I think that's a good thing for the Roh Dhna Mechatronics here, because this is a Warson faction, so it requires a lot of resources. And you could also be interested in getting not just the Warson unit upgrade, but also some others. Because if we take at the first faction specific technology, it's called contractual obligations. And before reading the text, I will say that it is very similar to the sling relay. The timing window is different because sling relay is used during the action phase, where this one is used during the agenda phase. And each of them have their own benefits. Sling relay because you could use it as an action during the action phase, where this one is only used in the agenda phase. But let's have a look. At the start of the agenda phase, for each unit upgrade technology you control, you may choose 1 player, and that player can be yourself. Each of those players must produce 1 ship in a system that contains 1 or more of their space docks or war sons if able. So the good thing with this technology is that we have unexhausted all of our planets for the agenda phase. So whenever we choose 1 player or more players, then either ourselves or the other player can pay for that unit by exhausting a planet. We will of course lose some votes during the agenda phase, but I think this is attractive enough that we actually can sell this to the other players during the agenda phase. But the downside is that it requires 2 yellow technologies. Of course, we start with Sarween tools, but we need 1 additional blue technology to get this. And then I think getting this technology could become a little more expensive than necessary. And it also forces you to research technology in the yellow tech tree instead of the usually very good blue tech tree. But enough about technology for now. I think we should have a closer look at our war sons here, because we have a lot of abilities related to that. So let's start with the first faction ability here. It's called Industrious. After you place a space dock in a system that contains no other player's ships, you may spend 6 resources and remove that space dock to place 1 war son in that system's space area. So let's have a look at the basic war son that we start with. The Terra Factory 1. I'll wait with the special text here, but it is important, the text here in italics that says this unit cannot be moved or be produced. So it doesn't have a cost value or a move value defined, which makes sense because we use this Industrious faction ability to get them out whenever the construction strategy card is being played. But then the special thing is that it got production 5, and when we produce either fighters or infantry, we will only get a single one instead of 2. And then it has capacity 4. So this basic version of the Warson is not very good. Of course you get a little extra protection because you can roll 2 die that each hits on a 5, but your Warson cannot move yet. But it gets much better when you get to the upgraded version. So let's have a look at that. The Terra Factory 2. So first off, other players' units in this system lose planetary shield, just like every other Warson. And we still get this limitation on how many fighters and infantry we can produce for their costs. we keep the production 5, but now we also have sustained damage, which we didn't have on the original one, and we also get bombardment, which we also didn't have. Then it costs 12 resources to produce, and now it doesn't have that limitation, so now it can be produced, so you're no longer dependent on the construction strategy card. Then the combat dice rolls are also improved, so you now get to roll 3 that hits on a 3, you get movement 2, and the capacity has also increased from 4 to 6. So this Warzone is very similar to the normal Warzone, except that it also got production and this limitation on how many fighters and infantry you can produce. But it doesn't end here. If you take a closer look at the agent, after one or more of a player's units use production, you may exhaust this card to allow that player to gain 1 command token. And I think this agent is really interesting because you get to move your Warzone out just like normal. Then when we reach the production step, we can exhaust the agent here, and then we will get a new token. We can produce, for instance, a fighter, an infantry, or a destroyer for free because we got Sarween tools. But of course we can also produce additional units, we just need to pay for it. And remember, if you don't need to use this ability yourself, you can of course always sell this agent's ability to some other player. Now let's skip the commander for now and move directly to the hero, because he is also related to production. After you move one or more of your ships into the active system, you may purchase this card to produce ships using the production abilities of any units in the active system as if they were your own, regardless of whether that system contains another player's ships. So it's important here to note that we can produce ships, not ground forces, using the hero here. But we also get to produce those units before the space combat begins, so you can actually use the production ability of another player's space dock, for instance in their home system, to produce additional ships that can participate in the space combat against the other player. And since fleet capacity is not calculated in that timing window, I actually believe you can produce more ships than your fleet supply normally would allow you to have. But of course, if you win the space combat with extra units or more units than you have fleet capacity for, then of course you need to destroy those extra units. But at least they can help you win that space combat. Alright, that was all the abilities related to the Warzone and producing units on the go. Now let's have a look at how you can actually sell some of your units to earn trade goods and get both your flagship and your mix out. So if we take a closer look at the second faction ability here, it's called Recycled Materials. After you activate a system, you may return one cruiser, carrier or dreadnought you control in that system to your reinforcements to gain a number of trade goods equal to 1 less than the unit's cost value. So why would you do this? Well, it can always be useful to gain some trade goods to score some objectives, but it is also a way to get your mechs out. It says deploy. After you use your Recycled Materials faction ability in a system, you may place one mech in that system's space area or on a planet you control in that system. So instead of producing the mechs yourself, then you can get them out for a discount of 1. But of course you lose a ship somewhere out in the galaxy. And this is also a little bit related to your flagship, because it also has a deploy ability. After you activate a system, you may spend 4 resources to replace one of your non-fighter ships in that system with your flagship. You can still produce it in the normal way and pay the 8 resources, but you could also use your Recycled Materials ability here to sell or recycle a dreadnought, get 3 resources for that, pay 1 additional, and then that dreadnought is recycled into your flagship, and of course you still need to replace 1 additional non-fighter ship, for instance a destroyer here. So it is a cheaper way to get your flagship out, and you can also get a mech out in the same timing window here, because you decide in which order you want to use these abilities in. So you can start with the Recycled Materials, get your mech out, and then you can choose to use your flagship ability to get your flagship out. And speaking of getting units out, We also have a faction promissory note, of course. It's called the Automatons. At the end of your turn, you may attach this card to a non-home planet you control other than Megator Rex. This planet has production 3 as if it were a unit. So this is a very easy sell, and it's definitely something I would like to try and sell for as much as possible, because the other player will save a command token on construction to get a space dock out. So I definitely think this is worth some trade goods that can help you boost your Warzone economy. And now, let's talk about which technologies I would consider researching if I'm playing this faction here. So as already mentioned, we start with Sarween tools and psychoarchaeology. Then the first other technology I would go for is probably AI development algorithm, because it removes one prerequisite when we research other unit upgrades. And of course we want to go for the upgraded Warzone at some point, and then AI development algorithm will count for 2 of the 3 red technologies that we need. So I would also strongly consider getting plasma scoring, and then we have access to Terra Factory 2. Then I am a little bit torn between should we go into yellow to get the contractual obligations technology, or is it better to go into blue, so getting dark energy tap or anti-mass deflectors, gravity drive or sling relay, and get access to lightwave deflectors ultimately. I'm not entirely sure about that. But another unit upgrade I would strongly consider getting is the PDS-2, and that is actually related to the commander, which I haven't talked about yet. First of all, it requires a combined production value of at least 7 in a system to unlock him. And when you spend a command token to resolve the secondary ability of the construction strategy card, you may resolve the primary ability instead. And I think that is pretty interesting. So first of all, you still need to spend a command token to resolve the secondary ability, but you can just place it in any system that you like and then resolve the primary ability as if you played the construction card yourself, and for instance get a space dock and a PDS out, or 2 PDSs. And that can be in any other system that you control. And since we are able to use the primary ability and get a lot of PDSs out, I actually think that both plasma scoring and PDS-2 can be really beneficial for this faction. But if I wanted to go for the contractual obligations, then I need one additional yellow technology, and that could be the scanning drone network, because if we happen to move our Warzone into a system where we already control the planet, we don't do it here right now, but then we can actually explore that planet if we have a unit on it with the scanning drone network. So in this regard, it could be fairly beneficial. But again, I really don't like going that much away from the blue tech tree. And finally, we have the last faction ability. It's called Orbital Foundries. For the purpose of scoring objectives, you may treat each of your Warzone units as though it is a structure on any planet you control. So first of all, you have easy access to get a lot of PDSs out, because you can resolve the primary ability of construction, but you can also use your Warzones as units to score structure objectives. And that covered everything that the Roh Dhna Mechatronics can do. I haven't tried playing them myself, but if you have, or you have any experience with this faction, feel free to share your experience in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.